is jump right down to this section that says, oh, the exam outline. Here's all the information I need to know. And I go to the trail mix, or I go to Salesforce documentation, and I look for all these things. And then as I was preparing for the life cycle exam, I started looking at the earlier part of the study guide and discovered there's a lot more detail. There's another place where the study guide tells us what to look for. And it's way back in section 2. And you go through this stuff, yeah, whatever kind of background, but here we go. This is the other information we want. This candidate has the experience, skills, knowledge, and ability to, and we have all these fine-grained details now that we also need to know that aren't necessarily spelled out in this much detail in the study guide, but they are spelled out here. So that's tip number 1 for you for studying, is when you're looking at a study guide, start in section 2 and then jump down to all the exam information to see what else you're missing. So that's what we're going to be covering. Some of you hopefully have had some experience with setting up single sign-on, setting up OAuth, setting up two-factor in My Domain and all that stuff, but we're going to take this a little bit at a time. We're going to try not to panic, and we're going to get through it one way or another. So, and again, study guide is the golden source of truth, and that's what I will be referring back to make sure that we've covered everything we need to cover. So what am I asking of you as being part of the group? Number 1, show up on time. If you've ever done any sort of study groups or meetings with me, you know that I'm a stickler about starting right when I say the meeting is going to start. One of my biggest pet peeves is if somebody schedules a meeting for 8 o'clock and then they say, we're going to give people a few more minutes to join, and then we don't start till 8:10 or 8:05. The meeting starts at 8. We're going to start at 8. I will also end on time. This meeting will end no later than 9 a.m. Under rare circumstances, if we have to go long, I'll get consent from the group, but I do everything in my power to stick within the scheduled time. You will be asked to do one 10 to 15 minute presentation each week. You were all sent a survey for your preferred meeting or your preferred presentation times. Those of you that picked Wednesday and Friday as your first choice, I got good news for you. You're always going to present on a Wednesday or a Friday. Monday was a very popular choice, and so if you picked Monday as your first choice, you're going to get that opportunity about half the time to actually present on Monday. And the other weeks, you might be presenting on your second choice. So just because Monday's a really popular time. Even if you're not scheduled to present, please attend as much as you are able. I know things come up sometimes, doctor's appointments, short notice meetings, big projects that you just can't get away from. But if you can make it, please do make it, even if you're not on the schedule to present. From the last study group I ran, I found that some of the most helpful knowledge was not just from the presenters, but from the group discussion based on the topics that we covered. So please come. If you can't make it, just let me know so we know. Also, study a little bit every day, 30 to 60 minutes. Get that habit going. What I've found is if I give myself 2 months to study, I'm not going to study for the first month, and then I'm going to start cramming in the last 4 weeks. So do a little bit every day. I'm going to set out a study plan, excuse me, that gives you about 30 to 60 minutes worth of studying on the weekdays. And then use the weekends. If you couldn't get through the studying throughout the week, use the weekends for that catch-up time or to dive deeper. If there's a Salesforce Saturday happening in your area, by all means, join that group and get some geek time with your fellow Salesforce people. So we're going to do 3 kinds of presentations. You'll be assigned one of these 3 presentation types. So concept explanation, that one sounds pretty straightforward. Whatever the concept is, you go, here's what we're going to do, and you just explain the concept. Show and tell is you're going to bring up a Salesforce org, and you're going to show us where do you actually click to set this thing up that we're going to talk about. How do you set up single sign-on? How do you set up social sign-on? And so on. And the last presentation type I like to call the Quizmaster. This is going to be our review person. So you're going to create flashcards for us to help us remember key concepts, and we'll do kind of a group quiz scenario, or maybe create some mock exam questions, and we'll go more into detail about each of these presentation types and what's expected. So for concept explanation, the questions on this slide were taken from SFDC 99. If you haven't checked out that website, check it out. So if you're doing a concept explanation preparation, here's some good thought starters on what your presentation should include. When should the feature be used? How does it work? What's the potential? When should you not use this feature? That becomes really important on exams, because if you've taken any exams, and I believe everyone here has taken at least one, you know that a lot of times the right answer on the exam comes down to one word in the question, and that makes the difference on how you answer it. So keep these questions in mind as you're going through it. For show and tell, it's like I said, it's you go into the org and here's how you click around and do things. Is this a Salesforce Classic only feature? Do you have to go into Classic to set it up, even if you're working in Lightning? That's becoming less and less common, but it still happens once in a while. What do all of those fields mean? Like if you go into Trailhead, a lot of times it'll tell you, oh, don't worry about that field, just click that. But for this exam, we're going to want to know, what do all these fields mean? So if you're on deck for show and tell, this is the kind of questions we'd like you to answer, especially the one about what are the common mistakes people make. And then, oops, I went backwards there. And then if you're a quiz master, you're going to be asked to do two kinds of things. So flashcard questions, which is basically quick and simple facts. Think back to when you were doing flashcards as a child, where you were learning your addition facts, your multiplication facts. And then also exam type questions. And to use, again, the analogy of a math class, your flashcards were your basic math facts. The exam type questions, think story problems, where you have to take all those various pieces of knowledge that you know and combine them together to solve a bigger problem. So flashcards, again, quick facts, small focused bits of information, quick to read, quick to answer. You should be able to read it in 5-10 seconds, answer it in 5-10 seconds. So here's some ideas for thought starters if you're working on flashcards. What are the key features of? What are the key limitations of? What are the major differences? You'll notice these look a lot like the kind of questions you would want to answer on the concept slides. So again, repetition is the mother of learning, and so this is going to help us cement that information. And then mock exam questions. So these are like story problems. Again, multiple pieces of information. If you've taken any exams, you know that they're often based on scenarios. And a lot of times there's two answers that both look right. And you really have to know your facts well in order to know which answer is really the right answer. So for example, here's an exam question. This was taken off the Platform App Builder Study Guide. So Universal Containers wants to create a roll-up summary to count the related records. What type of field must exist? So in order to answer this question, you have to know what all these highlighted things are. So a lookup relationship would be a great thing for a flashcard, or really multiple flashcards. A master detail relationship would be something else that would be great for a flashcard. What's a parent object? What's a child object? What's a roll-up summary? So you have to know these 5 distinct pieces of information to answer that single question. And so that's the kind of thing that you'd want to do on mock exam questions. Resources to use as you're preparing for your presentations, as you're doing your own studying. The study guide, of course, that should always be your first go-to to make sure that you've covered everything you need to cover. The trail mix, the official trail mix out on Trailhead. And other Trailhead modules, don't rely on Trailmix alone. In my experience, there are gaps in it. And so absolutely go out, do your Google searches, find other resources. Official Salesforce documentation is awesome. Salesforce's YouTube channels, I can't recommend them highly enough, especially the Dreamforce channel. So whether you went to Dreamforce or not, they record almost every session, and it's available out on YouTube for you to listen to. If you don't have YouTube Red, it's a very worthwhile $10 a month investment. It lets you offload videos for offline viewing. It lets you turn on a video and then lock your phone and keep listening. So as you're in the kitchen cooking, or you're driving, or you're folding laundry, you can be listening to some of these talks and absorbing that information. And also non-Salesforce resources, make sure you trust them, trust but verify. I've listed some of my favorite ones here. Lynda.com, check with your local library. There's a good chance that your local library has Lynda.com access, so you don't even have to pay for it. I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and around here, the D.C. Public Library and now the Fairfax County Library both give you free access to Lynda.com. Pluralsight is another great place for technical resources. Udemy, you've probably taken some classes on there. Safari Books Online, this is like an online repository of technical books. Fantastic resource. If your employer offers you access to it, check it out. I believe there's a free trial available. And of course, YouTube, as I said before. So that's a lot of talking. How are we going to do this? So group study resources. We took a poll. It's 2/3 of us favor Slack over Chatter. So I'll be setting up a private Slack channel. Look for that invitation later today. Also on Google Drive, there's going to be a bunch of resources out on Google Drive. Let me just show you a few of them. So here's our study plan. You'll notice it's a little anemic right now, but it will grow as we grow. So this is where you can go and say, what should I be studying this week? And these are titles. Hopefully the links all go to the correct place. You'll notice every day you're going to spend an hour or less on studying. From what I've seen, the trail mixes or the modules tend to be a little too conservative on the time, that it normally takes me less time than what the modules say in trail mix, especially the ones that are quiz-based. So I'm trying to make it where you're not overwhelmed every day. Do a little bit every day. And then the other one I want to show you is, and I'm going to have to find it. Okay, so we'll come back to that one. So there's a resource sheet where we can put quiz questions, where you can put links to other resources that you like that maybe aren't included in the official trail mix. So I've done a lot of talking. Right now, I'm actually going to turn it over to some members of our group that have graciously agreed to share their experiences. So we got Terry, Jeff, and John. They have all taken the identity exam before and they were not able to pass it. And so I asked them to share their experiences on what the exam was like for them. Maybe if you guys want to share how it compared to other exams that you've taken and any insights we could glean from you, that would be great. So Jeff, John, and Terry, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Hi, this is Terry. Are you able to hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry, I came in a little bit late. I totally wasn't ready for the routine. Yeah, and a little bit from my experience, I studied quite a bit for this exam. It was probably of the designer ones, the ones that I was most afraid of because I just had the least experience with the topic. And the exam kind of proved out to be exactly what I expected. I took it during Dreamforce and failed it, and then took it again toward the end of Dreamforce and failed it twice. Both exams were I kind of wish that I had the first exam the second time I went through it, because I think I probably would have passed it. The first one seemed significantly easier to me than the second series of questions. But what caused me the most challenges on the exam was just best practices. And again, I think that's because I lacked the experience of the topic. And that's really where I struggled, and why one of the reasons I'm excited about this group is just being able to gain more practical experience with use cases and so forth. I think that'll help me the most. Actually following through the trail mixes and building the examples were all fairly simple, because it does kind of walk you through it. And so that part was reasonably easy. It's just for me, it was the practical aspect of how of when to use what type of technology to do the best practice, that sort of thing. So that was kind of my experience with it.
Okay. So Terry, compared to the other designer exams you've taken, how would you say one rates in difficulty?
Most of the others I've had a fair amount of experience with, but so I found this one's a lot more challenging. I'm a consultant, and so from when I kind of scored out my results, I think I missed them both by one or two questions. So I was pretty close, just on head knowledge, but I kind of don't want to walk into a client saying that I'm an expert on a topic if I just passed by one or two questions. I kind of feel like they deserve better than that. I felt it was pretty hard, but again, I think it was just because of the practical experience not having it.
Okay. Fair enough. Jeff, you off mute where you can share your experiences?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, so I think I would attribute my experience on that of lack of preparation. I took this at the Trailhead DX this year, and it was the second one I took towards the end of the week. So the one I took at the beginning of Trailhead, I had studied leading up to it. This is one I didn't have a lot of experience like Terry, tried to cram a lot of stuff in a week while going to class, and then the final test day was, class all day, a couple hours of, again, trying to go over notes and then going in, and I was really just fried. About halfway through the class, I just wasn't reading anything. Nothing was coming, into focus. It's just one of those things of the wrong experience getting into that. Since that point, I've done a number of things, around setting up single sign-on, setting up JWT web services, setting up a couple of other types of connections. So I feel I've got more experience, and then taking more time now to actually get into it and study and spread it out versus trying to cram it all within a week with a lot of other things going on.
Yeah. I was at Trailhead DX. I remember taking that second exam, and they gave, I think, like a 30-minute break between the end of class and
yes, it was just you just go in and everything kind of blends together. And being a test that I didn't have a lot of experience to go back on things I've been doing for years, it's all memory. It was just kind of shot. So I think with this particular test, I think both with this one and the integration, my experience with both of those, it seems like 60 questions in this area just means they can get into a lot of detail. It's not as much just broad range that you might get with some of the other, where there's a question here or there, but they can really get into some fine nuances, and I think try to get into those within the test. So it's like you need to know more details necessary than just kind of a broad range to kind of work your way through. That's what I remember from back in March. So
yeah,
okay.
I agree with that.
Okay. And John, if you are on and
Yep, I'm here. So yeah, I took the exam when it was a beta, June 2 years ago. And so what I remember about it wasn't 60 questions. It was more like 120 or 130. And but it was, it was a lot of detail. I guess one of the questions was, how is it different from the others? This exam to me feels more like rote memory. All right, you just got to memorize. This is SSO, this is SAML, this is OAuth, and you've got the diagrams, and you've got to understand the diagrams, and you've got to be able to, you've got to be able to talk through each of the facets of the diagrams. And I'm sure the nuances of the questions and the wordings, you were talking about it earlier, like one word can throw off the meaning of one answer versus another. So again, it was just kind of, it was a grueling exam, absolutely. And it's probably far the most challenging one that I've had thus far. Let's say that. So.
Yeah, and the folks that run the architect program at Salesforce, I spoke with one of them, Deb Maranta, at Trailhead DX, and she said that the identity exam has the highest failure rate of any of the architect exams.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all. I mean.
Yeah. So when I was looking at the study guide, I have to say, I think over and over again was, oh crap, oh my God, how am I ever going to learn all this stuff? Oh God, this is too much. So we're going to do this together. We're going to do this as a group, a little bit at a time, a little bit every day. And we're going to get through this, folks, and we're going to pass it. So again, right now I've scheduled the meeting to go out through, and Terry, could you mute? I think we got some noise coming from you. I'm not sure. There we go. Oh, that's better. Thank you. So I think right now I have the meetings going out through like the week before Christmas. We may end before that. We may later than that. Again, I've never done this 3 times a week cadence before, so we're just going to see how it goes. So thank you guys for sharing that experiences. So the biggest takeaway for me is you really got to learn your stuff. This is going to be a good exercise in memorization and in learning diagrams. If anybody has any memory tips to share, or any good books on memory, please share those with the group throughout our learning experience. So this week's tasks, that is not the updated slides. Let me refresh that. Here we go. So what are we going to work on this week? We're going to start with the trailhead, and we're going to start slow. We're not going to dive into SAML or single sign-on yet. We're going to start with the Identity Basics Trailhead module. That should take you 45 minutes or less to complete. It's all quiz-based. It's really just a high-level overview of what you're going to be studying the rest of the time. The User Authentication Trailhead module, just the first 2 units. One deals with two-factor authentication, one deals with My Domain. And then the next 2 links are links to the Salesforce documentation. Again, My Domain, two-factor authentication. So for this Friday, we have our first set of presenters up. If you're not going to be here on Friday, please find somebody else that can do the presentation for you. So Daniel, you're going to cover two-factor concepts. Again, that's more the here's what this thing is all about. Here's what you need to do. Madhavi, I hope I'm not butchering your name. You get to do the show and tell in the Salesforce org. Show us the different ways you can use two-factor. You'll notice on the study guide for both John and Madhavi, it talks about what risks can you mitigate by turning on two-factor authentication. So please make sure you cover that. And then Harish will cover My Domain. I'm sure if you're in Lightning, you have My Domain set up already, probably. Even if you're not in Lightning, My Domain could be your friend. So Harish will tell us about that. Winnie will do the show and tell. And I will be sending out Slack channel invites to all of you. You will also be getting invitations to the Google Sheets documents with information on what's in each one. So this is going to be a quick session today, so you all can go off and use your remaining half hour to start and tackling some of the stuff you can be studying this week. But before I let you go, are there any questions or comments from anybody?
You will post, you said this deck is going to be posted so we can grab these links. So
yep, absolutely. And there'll also be a Google Sheet with the study plan as well, with the same links in it.
Yep, that's fine.
Natasha, will you have the following weeks or days presentations outlined as well, so that if we're presenting on Monday or Wednesday next week, we would be able to start prepping for that?
Yeah, great question. Yes, I will have those by end of day tomorrow. I will have next week's plan and presenters up. So my plan is to be a week ahead of you guys so that you have a week's notice on what you need to be working on when it's your turn to present.
Yeah, I'll just end with thanks, Natalia, for setting this up. And I know it's going to be extra work on you keeping organized, even though the rest will be presenting. You still get a high amount of work on keeping this going, so appreciate it.
No, I'm looking. Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to getting input from all you guys. That's what really makes the group worthwhile, and makes the work worthwhile is just the knowledge that comes from the group experience. So thank you for everyone that has joined. Looking forward to talking to everybody on Friday, learning more about two-factor authentication and My Domain. Get studying and look for those links in your email. And I think that is the end of the presentation. So have a great morning, everybody. And we will talk to you all again on Friday.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.